Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that. Welcome to East Gippsland Shire Council meeting today, Tuesday, 7th of June, 2022. It's 6 p.m. and we are in the Council chambers here at 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, and we're also live broadcasting this. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monero and Bidawal people as the traditional custodians of this land that encompass East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. Traditional custodians have cared and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council value their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders, past, present and future. Ladies and gentlemen, I just also want to acknowledge that, and I was talking to the members of the gallery tonight, and we do have gender representation in the gallery now, which is great, so thank you for that. But this is the first time we have had a live gallery since, I think, December 2019. So it's really terrific to have that community participation live in the chamber. So for the benefit of everyone, East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. During the meeting, any member of the public who are addressing the Council will have their and your image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair. That's me. In line with the Local Government Act 2020, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person, and the meeting will be open to the public via live streaming. If council encounters difficulties with the live streaming during this meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If technical issues can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. So, a council member's attendance can only be recorded as present at the meeting when the member can confirm that they meet all of these three criteria. They can hear the proceedings, they can see other members here in attendance and can be seen by other members, and they can be heard to speak. So I have Councillor Jane Greeson and Councillor Sonia Buckley online, and I will ask them each in turn this. Councillor Greeson, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Terrific. We can't quite hear you very well, but try again. Can you confirm the location you are participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, I can.
Terrific.
Can you hear me better now?
We can hear you now. Councillor Buckley, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Can you confirm the location you are participating from is secure to ensure confidential items are dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, it is.
Terrific. Thank you. CEO, I don't think we've got any apologies, do we?
No.
Are there any declarations of conflict of interest, councillors or officers? None noted. Confirmation of the minutes. So the minutes of the last council meeting, Tuesday 17th of May, and the unscheduled council meeting on Thursday 26th of May be confirmed. Councillor Allen, Councillor Stowe, would you like to speak to the matters?
No, it's all right, thanks, Mayor.
Is the matter opposed, councillors?
Can I just seek some clarification? Is that for the
Absolutely.
meeting, Genoa, and for
The unscheduled, yes, closed meeting.
both?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Crook. Are you okay with that, councillors? That's so the 17th and the 26th of May, those two meetings. And those minutes have been circulated. So happy to move it, second it. Nobody's opposing it. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, CEO. Carried unanimously. The next meeting, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat, is Tuesday the 28th of June to be held here again, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence?
I haven't received any.
No, I don't think so. We're moving on to open forum, and we have some members of the public who'd like to speak. But before we move into that, I would just like to acknowledge a young Rotarian, Harrison Walker, who's in grade 6 at St Brendan's Lakes Entrance. So I'm going to just pop up and see Brendan and make a bit of a fuss because what you're doing is terrific, and present you with a badge. And that enables Brendan, ladies and gentlemen, to not have to hang around for the whole meeting.
to say something there?
Deputy Mayor, it would be most appropriate for you to say something unless you're going to move a motion that Harrison has to stay for the whole meeting.
Yeah, that too. People probably aren't aware that the Junior Rotary Awards that Harrison is partaking now happen in 14 countries around the world. They originated across the road with Lorna Hawkey years ago, a lot of years ago, and it's gone international as a result of something that started here in Bairnsdale, and it is a really great initiative for people such as Harrison to go through the program. They have to attend a meeting like this, or a public meeting, or a sporting club meeting, visit nursing homes, do a number of things, and at the end of the year in November there will be an awards night to acknowledge their efforts. So Harrison, thank you for coming and congratulations, and good on you for doing the course.
Well done. So we all wish you the best in your leadership journey, Harrison. And Harrison informed me that, among other things, he went to Greece the other day.
He informed me he voted for Collingwood.
Never mind.
Right. Harrison, we need to talk after this about your football allegiance. But he went to Greece at the Forge Theatre, I think, rather than all the way to Athens. But that's my dad joke for you, Harrison. You can take that away. Well done. We have a couple of questions, public questions, and 4 people who would like to speak this evening.
Correct. Mayor, the first question we have is from Mr. Joe Rotino, and he's asked me to read this on his behalf. It reads, Preamble, entrepreneurs boost regional economic growth by introducing innovative technologies, products and services. They provide new job opportunities in the short and long term. Question, did the East Gippsland Shire engage subject experts to assess and establish a Thrive framework to enable entrepreneurs to succeed in East Gippsland? Has this work been completed, and if so, when? And will it be released to the public? And I've asked Mr. McConnell to answer.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I believe Mr. Returno is referring to a report that was commissioned by Council a number of years ago, and that report was not finalised, and at this stage it's not been released to the public. And while, however, it does contain some quite useful information. That said, the context obviously in this space has changed a lot over the last couple of years, with drought, then fires, then COVID. In some senses, the context for entrepreneurship is even more important than ever. The information has been used in informing our thinking around the draft East Gippsland Economic Development Strategy, which we intend to release for public comment shortly. And also coming shortly is an entrepreneurship program, which again is a reflection of some of the priorities that come out of that work, and we'll provide some further details to you and to the community broadly shortly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Stuart. Terrific. Second question from Danielle Matthews, I believe.
Correct. Thanks, Mayor. Her question is, in relation to planning application at 75 Paynesville Road, Paynesville, the question is, of the 7 types of dwellings available in the Palm Lakes Village, why are they all 3-bedroom houses? My mother-in-law is looking to move into a village in the area. She is 80 years old and very independent. She is looking at a 1 or 2 bedroom dwelling. Why is there nothing smaller than a 3-bedroom house available in this new village? We'll also ask Mr. McConnell to provide.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So in its strategic planning work, Council will often seek to put in place policies and strategies that encourage a diversity of housing stock. However, when we're considering a planning permit application, the question before us is whether or not that application meets the requirements that are in place in terms of the planning scheme. In the case being referred to by the proponent for the Palms Lake Village has advised, surprisingly in some senses, that whilst people are looking to downsize, in downsizing they are continuing to look for 3-bedroom properties on the whole, and so their advice is that is the market to which they're responding. That's the preference, and as a result, the properties in the development have generally been framed around either 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom plus an additional utility room. And that's what is in front of us for assessment later this evening.
It is indeed. Thank you, Stuart. CEO, so we have 4 people who wish to address Council tonight.
Correct, Mayor. The first person is Cosette Murphy, who I believe is with us tonight.
Good evening.
And just a reminder, Cosette, there's time reminder?
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
It's right in my face. Sorry.
You can drop it down a bit if you wish. Yeah, just pull it down.
Like this?
I think it's probably better down.
Ah, much better.
that.
This technology hates me. Right, not very good
No, it's-
technology. My name is Cosette Murphy. Good evening. And I would like to tell you about a bit of the feedback from attending the service centre and the library reviews last week. And Peter was there too. So it's good to see. Please do not shoot me. I'm just going to read some of the things that the people said in the room, yes? Okay. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Deputy Mayor Arthur Allen for his attendance. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, we've
for
got
his
you.
attendance last Monday at Lakes Entrance Library. Thank you so much. It was very nice to see you down there. Now I'm going to read 10 things that they were brought up during those visits at these beautiful libraries. Once a service is going to be removed, it's never coming back. Also, opens the doors for the council to do it again with other services in the future. Another comment. Customer satisfaction survey from 2019 and 2020 say the best performance for East Gippsland Council are the service centres and libraries. Why are you cutting them off? Number 3, disability worker was in the room at that time and he said, when am I supposed to take my clients on a Monday and Friday when you close the library at 2 p.m.? Libraries are the soul of our community. We demand Lakes Entrance to open on Saturdays too. How many councillors apologize for not attending the meeting at Paynesville Library on Friday? Number 6, we are sacrificing face-to-face services to improve call centres and computer usage based on foot traffic on the last 18 months and from Mildura model of operation. Number 7, we take from Peter to give to Paul. Number 8, closing our library is not about how to help the community to recover and heal after 2 hard years. It's about cutting the heart of the community. Number 9, the basis for the reduction in hour at Paynesville, it is because of the proximity to Paynesville Library, around 15 minutes. Do you drive a company car, was the question. The response was, this is not a relevant question. And number 10, did the recommendation took in consideration the social values assessment and the role and function of the library services? And the answer to that question was no. I just want to close this with, a library in the middle of a community is a cross between an emergency exit, a life raft, and a festival. They are cathedrals of the mind, hospitals of the soul, theme parks of the imagination. On a cold, rainy island, they are the only sheltered public spaces where you are not as a customer, but as a citizen instead. By Kathleen Moran. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And points well made. Thanks, Gossett, and thank you for the alliteration as well. That's most appropriate. Tina. Good evening, Tina. Welcome.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening, Council. My name is Tina Genyon. I'm a primary school teacher and due to the mandates have lost my job in October. I'm presenting the local pro-choice group from the People's Assembly. I will be talking to you about minority groups and facts and data that I have sourced from the Australian Electorate Commission and the 2016 census data. Today, I would like to address your personal conscience. I do not expect any reply to my speech, even though this would be greatly appreciated. It is for you to decide what you do with this information. It recently has come to my attention that some members of this council believe that the pro-choice community or the anti-vaxxers, how some people call us, are only a small number and can easily be dismissed. Yes, 95% of the East Gippsland Shire are vaccinated, according to the statistics. It does not show, however, how many people have been forced to do so. Either take the injection or lose your livelihood. I would like to share with you some fact-checked figures that will clearly indicate that there are more than only a small group of people that had enough of government control and having their freedoms taken away from them. After closely investigating the election outcome in the Gippsland electorate, it stands out to me that freedom parties such as One Nation, United Australia Party and the Liberal Democrats have received 17.6% of votes in the Gippsland electorate. I'm putting those three parties in the same hat and label them all freedom parties, as each party had members that have spoken up in the past for its constituents, for bodily autonomy, freedom of speech, freedom of choice, and against the experimental injection. That means 16,480 people have voted for freedom, 17.6%. 19.2% have voted for Labor. The difference is 1,506 people. 17.6% of voters want the Freedom Party in power. Just a small group, obviously. I would like to bring to your attention the rights of 1.9% of Indigenous people that are rightfully not being ignored. What about all the children between 0 and 14 years of age? Do they count? Because they take up 17.5% of the Gippsland population. 13.8% of families in the Gippsland electorate are either separated or divorced, and I'm certain that every person in this room knows at least one or two families in this situation. Do you think they count? Of course they do. And so do the 17.6% of people that want freedom of choice. 18.2% of people in this electorate are attending government primary schools. This is just a small number, but they count. Think of all the government primary schools, all those children. They're 18.2%. Imagine if their needs would be ignored because they are a minority, just like the 17.6% of freedom-loving people. 16.2% of people in this electorate are technician or tradespeople. What would happen if the tradies would be ignored? A petition with over 170 signatures, including owners of retail stores in Bairnsdale, has not been allowed to be tabled. This petition was asking the Council for the risk assessment of the COVID-19 measurements in the East Gippsland Shire. I am certain that the 17.6% of freedom of choice voters would have signed this petition and agreed with it. These are my thoughts, and I leave them with your conscience today. It is for you to decide what you do with this information. If you would like to reply, we've got an email address now. People's Assembly East Gippsland at protonmail.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Janine Hadley. Hello, Janine.
Good evening. There's got to be a heater here. I'm freezing.
You cold? We fluctuate between being too hot and too cold in here. It's sort of the Arctic blows out of those vents.
Well, I sat over here hoping that Dave would come my way. But,
Yeah.
However,
Sorry.
while I'm here. I'm just going to speak from my heart. The libraries are the heart of the community. They really are. They're community libraries, and we're all old enough to remember that, you know, we went in as kids and we grabbed books and we had a chat to, you know, and it's a great resource centre. Now, I was only alerted a week ago that council perhaps could be culling the hours, and I was devastated. I really was. So I've been to a few of the meetings, but what I was finding, I'm asking you, please, can you all come down and visit? I'm here from Lakes Entrance Library as well as Paynesville Library. You are going to make a decision to cull the hours. I am asking you, please come in to these libraries and see for yourself the great resource centre that we've got here. In Paynesville, Lakes Entrance, I've been into Lakes Entrance Library since I've been alerted to this. Every day I've just been going in and out, and I've met the Follies, these girls here that are volunteers. They've been volunteers for over 6 years. They come in, there's a lady here, she does 3 or 4 hours a week. Now, I didn't even know there was a such thing as Friends of the Library, but the work behind the scenes in these libraries, because it's community, it's all about community health. But greater than that, we've all probably got elderly parents, and it's amazing, especially Paynesville. Peter here was at the Paynesville meeting on Friday afternoon. The majority of those people that were there were elderly people. They absolutely love their library. And I was crying with a lady, she 82, had a placard on, she got up and she said at 82 she never thought that she'd be protesting, but she had lost a loved one and she didn't know how to do the photos that, you know, for the funeral and all that, so she went to a local library, user-friendly, the people down there, like all of our libraries, excellent staff, truly, they are amazing. The job description, they work over and above the job descriptions. They answer all the questions, but this particular 82-year-old lady, she went to the library and got all the help to do the photos and to use the internet, and she was distraught. She just lost, had a deep loss. But they're things that you don't know about because what I've heard, and I've been to the meetings where you've presented, that you got your data from the Victorian libraries, the data of, that you could cut here and cut there and cut here, and that's fine. But truly, you need to get into these libraries, listen, just sit there and just see. It is truly the hub of the community. And if you strip them back, especially the older people, they go in to touch a book and have a chatter. And then I was there the other day and a man he wasn't elderly, he was quite young, about my age, and he came in, he had a new phone. And he just came in, went up to the counter, and he said, "Please, can you help me with this phone?" And I was amazed. I really was amazed, because that's our library. That's our local library. That is the hub of, it's just such great resource. But it's one-on-one, and a lot of these people that are using the library as a connection into the community, they're not going to be able to come in here to Bairnsdale because it's 40 minutes from Lakes Entrance. A lot of them aren't, they know nothing about computers and da-di-da-di-da, but they can go into these people, into the girls behind the counter, I'm only talking Lakes here, and just say, "Hey, look, I've got this problem." I was there the other day, a man couldn't get through to Centrelink. And the girls helped him. 20 minutes they spent.
Janine,
20 minutes.
we're just about out of time.
We are. I'm very passionate. Please, you will rip the heart out of this community library if you cull the hours. We're all here. None of us are paid. It's cold. For us to come out in the cold, we're passionate. We must keep our libraries open. We must. It is a must. So please can you get involved? I've asked Councillor Arthur to come and just see for himself, and I'm sure he will next week when he's got time.
Good on you, Janine. Thank you, and I'm sure that the councillors will do whatever they can to visit the libraries as they do regularly. Now, Julie, are you here? G'day, Julie. Come and join us. Julie Musatix, is that how I pronounce yours?
Correct, yes.
Fantastic. Good evening, Julie.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. The last time I was talking to you guys, it was on a Zoom call because we weren't allowed to access the chambers, and I was addressing Sonia Buckley's request to go to the Health Minister, to find out why these mandates are being put on us pro-choice people. But anyway, I just thought I'd alert you to where you saw me last. Since October last year, I haven't been able to work. My poor mother is beside herself because she's always saying to me, "You just need to get another job." Mum, you don't understand. So, I'm putting up with quite a lot of stress from family and whatever. And I attend different pro-choice and other community events. And I was at the Rotunda this morning at 10 o'clock with all the people, that have lost their jobs, or that we're just all supporting each other through mandates. And I found out that they're going to cut the Paynesville library hours down to 18 and a half hours or something like that, if I haven't stated the right amount of hours. And I was just like flabbergasted, and I just said, no, I'm coming and I'm going to talk about this. And since I've found that out, I've spoken to about 15 of my friends. They're elderly, they're in willies, and they just access the Paynesville library. I told them to get straight down there and sign the petition. So the petition will be, on the 50th page by now, because I've just rung everybody. So my last thing to the council, that we elect you guys, and you work for us. And that's what you have to remember. And I'm getting very passionate because my last thing, it's on your vision here. And I am putting a question to every single one of you. And I want to know, how does the council put community at the centre of decision making by cutting hours across the libraries in all of their shires? And that's it. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry if
Thanks,
I'm a bit
Julie.
animated.
That's all right. Thanks, Julie. We've had animated in here before, and you weren't as animated as others in the past. So, but thanks for your passion. It's appreciated. Thank you, councillors. That concludes that section. Pardon me. That section of the open forum. So we're on to item 2, councillors, and I don't think there's any notices of motion or deferred business, in which case we're moving straight on to councillors and delegates' reports. And I'm happy to move around to the right. Councillor Allen.
Thanks, Mayor.
What have you been up to?
Well, I've had 3 really, really enjoyable occasions in the last 3 weeks that just really make it worthwhile to do this job. The first one was at Tambo Crossing, where we had the opening of their community centre, and for that small community, I think there was every man, and some of them had 3 dogs. They turned up from near and far, and they were just so pleased to have something in their community where they can all meet, and that was really great. A couple of days later, I was at Sarsfield Rec Reserve, where they opened their new tennis court and cricket nets in conjunction with their Friday feast, and I think that they undercated. There was that bigger turnout of people just so pleased that something has come back into their community after the fire. So that was a great night too. But the day after at Genoa was one of the best ones I think I've been to. Mark was there, Mindy was there, a lot of the council officers, and for that little community to have well in excess of 100 people turn out on what threatened to be a very wet day, but fortunately wasn't, to see their bridge opened again was just a really great occasion, and it was an honour to be there. And the other thing of note that I just wanted to mention was also on the 25th of May, I attended a funeral for a very, very understated but hugely influential person in the Bairnsdale community in the shape of Peter Down. The work that Peter's done over his lifetime is immense, but the monument that will last forever is the Hope Centre out there on Broadlands. That was his passion and drive that brought that to fruition. And Harrison, you know, you wonder about some of the things that Rotary do. My first introduction, not to Peter, but to the Hope Centre, was when he turned up at Rotary and Lakes and said, "This is what I'm going to do, and you're going to help me do it." And so, you know, I think that people like that in our community are a rarity on the one hand, but the greatest asset we've got. So rest in peace, Peter.
Yeah. Kind and good words there, Arthur. We do miss Peter, and his legacy will live on.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Councillor Stowe.
Look, there's been nothing terribly significant except for Collingwood winning 3 games in a row. But going down to Orbost with the council group...
There's almost a point of order required on that, I'm afraid.
Going down to Orbost with the council group was the highlight of the 3 weeks, really. I think it's important for the council group to get out amongst the people. I should say now in Orbost. And we had a good look around, met a lot of people. I think it was the mutual benefit of the councillors and also the people of those areas.
Good on you. Thanks, Councillor Stowe. Councillor Crook, what have you been doing?
Oh, a bunch of stuff. Firstly, a bit of a quick success story. Look, after many years, the Australian Coastal Councils Association, of the association lobbying the federal government to provide funding for disaster prevention rather than just recovery, the new incoming government has in fact committed to investing $200 million a year in disaster prevention and resilience. So the coastal councils really welcome that outcome. This new disaster fund's aimed at reducing the increasing impact of natural disasters under climate change by investing in projects such as flood levees, seawalls, cyclone shelters, evacuation centres and improvements in telecommunications. So all things that our region will benefit from in time, and an investment that's really supported by the Insurance Council of Australia and many others. I also had the honour of meeting and hosting Melissa Horn, who's the Minister for Transport, Ports and Freight at Paynesville the other week, to announce funding for the new Raymond Island Public Jetty extension, and then later in that same day out at the Fennings Intermodal Freight Terminal to welcome the first official test freight train. The weather certainly wasn't particularly kind to us on the day, but the Minister was, with funding for both of these projects, which are pretty significant developments for our region. I really enjoyed visiting Now the other week and Orbost too. And we met with quite a few community members, including those of Mudgee Aboriginal Council, who are doing some great work in the health and natural values management space. And we also met with the Orbost Exhibition Centre Committee, who, like many other committees in our region, are volunteering their time just to make our community a more vibrant and pleasant place to live. So good work to those people who volunteer. And I'd just like to recognise those people there. I'll leave it at that for now.
Good on you. Thanks, Councillor Crook. Councillor Van Diggle. Good evening, Kirsten.
Evening, Mayor. I won't go through everything I've done over the last 3 weeks. It's been good. It's been a busy few weeks. So I've attended a lot of things with other councillors, but one thing I did attend a few weeks ago with Councillor Greason was the Rainbow Local Government Conference. It was meant to be on in St Kilda in February, I believe, but it was cancelled and moved online due to COVID. So it was a full day conference, which was quite fatiguing being online, but there were over 25 guest speakers there, whether they were councillors or people who worked in a council or were part of reference groups. And it just gave us a lot of ideas about what we could be doing in this space in East Gippsland, whether it's just celebrating key dates, which I know Council did, or the youth ambassadors did for Ida Hobbit a couple of weeks ago. But some of the recommendations were to set up a reference group or come up with an annual action plan about key dates that we'd celebrate or steps that we take to be more LGBTI inclusive, both council for our community but also workers. And one of the things that they definitely recommended was to get the rainbow tick accreditation, which I realise is a really long process and a really extensive and expensive process, but I think it'd still be worth looking into if our council could do something like that, should resources allow. And I'm not sure if there is a report that will come out with the minutes that's a lot more detailed. And then also I attended the Youth Ambassador meeting, I believe it was last week, with a number of other councillors. And I obviously am the elected representative along with someone else. You, Mark, for that committee?
I think the mayor by default.
Okay, mayor by default. But we had, I think, 4 councillors there. Or
So I
5.
lied about my age to go there.
Sorry?
I lied about my age to get in.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought you were a bit older than that. And I just love being part of that group.
Yeah,
They had Sandy come down from the Latrobe Youth Space that was talking about their project with the bus, but we also had a chance to ask questions of the young people and vice versa. And they were actually quite interested in having a say on the budget. So in the future, I know it was a bit last minute, but to make a youth-friendly consultation with the youth ambassadors, they said they'd be quite interested in that in future years. So just to keep in mind, and even stuff like the service review and, for example, you know, if the economic development, whatever came out, like just to try to get the youth ambassadors involved in that level a bit more so they feel a bit more empowered at the council level. So we'll just see how we can keep supporting them in that space. And then I'll leave it at that.
Good on you. Thanks, Kirsten. I'm going to go across the room via our councillors on screen. So, Councillor Buckley, invite you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had it's been a busy time. I went to Melbourne to the MAV meeting with Rural Councils Victoria, which was very enlightening. They are lobbying hard for the rural councils. They're starting their work now in regards to their platform for the state election in November. So it is time now for councils to put forward any ideas that they would like for Rural Councils Victoria to present on our behalf. So that was very interesting, and there are many reports that I will put forward to the councillors to read stemming from that meeting. Also, myself and Councillor White met with the community of Buchan at the hall in a meeting that was arranged by farmers. We were invited to attend, and their concerns were raised about the draft budget, and there was a lot of concern about the proposed raise in the differentials. So that was there was a lot of I suppose anger in the room, which was you know, well received. We understood what they were saying, and we've had some been addressed by further farmers in the council chambers, which I thought was very useful. The conversation was enlightening, and I guess I'll probably pass this on to Councillor White for him to explain a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Greason.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Been a bit of a busy time for me, and I know we spoke about it when we were in Mallacoota, but that trip, those 2 days in Mallacoota were really valuable, and going to Club Terrace and Can River and Mallacoota itself and Genoa, I just found that fantastic. And then followed up a week ago in Orbost. We spoke to some great people. It's already been mentioned about the Orbost Exhibition Centre and just how fantastic that place is, and the work that the volunteers do there. And the library there, I've never been in the Orbost Library, and it is fantastic. What a beautiful place. It's a library plus a history, centre about Orbost. It's just great. But the two things I'll mention, I'll just add to what Councillor Van Diggle said about the Rainbow Local Government Conference. And it was a very valuable day, and I agree with what she said that, you know, I think we need to follow up with Council. 90% of Victorian councils do raise the rainbow flag on their town halls and libraries to recognise and celebrate diversity days like, you know, their Pride and Midsummer events and things like that. Many of them do have the rainbow ticket accreditation. Many have what they call coming out officers. I don't think we have a coming out officer. I've never heard of one here. They have a coming out officer group which meets regularly, and I think it's something we need to look into. There's a significant number of community members who are LGBTQI+, and you know, they represent fabulous diversity. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the MAV emergency management meeting, which was on the 23rd of May. It's a complex meeting with a lot of information, but the material I took out of it was data from the CFA, who are going through a process now of engaging diverse communities and people at higher risk and looking at the data about how they cope with fire or what happens in fire. So they stated that in the fires, the bushfires we experienced 2 years ago, 44% of the people who died were vulnerable people, so disabled or some other vulnerability. There's some research done in National House Fire Fatality Research 2003 to 2017. 61.8% of fatalities were people with a disability, 36% were older people. There's really significant information, obviously a lot more that needs to be done about it, supporting people to protect themselves and prevent these kinds of fatalities. They're also doing work on family violence and what they're calling gender in emergency management, the gendered impacts of disaster and emergency. So I think there's a lot to learn in all of that. The final thing I'll just add is that I'll mention is that I attended the Foundry Winter Exhibition launch, which was held on a cold, wintry night outside the Foundry in Bairnsdale, and it was lovely. There's a little fire there, and free warm drinks and alcoholic drinks, of course, and food, and people milling around and talking and enjoying each other's company, and I think there needs to be a lot more of that. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Councillor Greason. Councillor White.
Thank you. As Councillor Buckley has just previously said, yes, I did attend a meeting in Buchan last Tuesday. To say that there was anger is perhaps not quite right. There was actually concern, even fear over what could possibly be happening to them in terms of the rate scenarios. But Tim Bull also attended that meeting and you know, offered them his support. But what I took from that was, and this is something that perhaps is not knowledge of everybody, but parts of that Buchan community had been burnt out, not just in the Black Summer fires, but both of the 2 previous years. And one of those people was somebody that I used to share with. So, and when I found that out, I said to Squirrel, how on earth are you still surviving here? Because I had no idea that that's what had happened to them, particularly in the Buchan South area. So not only they had the drought, they then were burnt out 3 times in a row. To me, it was extraordinary that they still had the will to continue to be living in that area. It was just astonishing. So, but as a result of the release of the draft budget, I feel that I've actually been a call centre operator. The number of phone calls I've fielded, in fact, at one stage there were 3 phones in the home. There was mine, my wife's and the council phone. And people who knew all those 3 numbers, if they couldn't get me because I was talking on one of them, they dialed all the others until somebody picked up to say, because they just wanted to talk so desperately about the draft budget. And it was not all about rates, it was actually about the Raymond Island ferry. And then, of course, we came up against the library situation, and it's just been full on. So I haven't attended a lot of things, but golly, I would say I've taken in excess of 100 phone calls in this short space of time, which, last Friday it actually equated to trying to go to work, but the phone started to ring, and I was 6 hours on the phone before I actually started work, which was 2:30 in the afternoon. So that's my bit. I've certainly been putting in a few hard yards.
Good on you. Thanks, Councillor White. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Lots of things on, as with all the other councillors. It's been quite a busy period, but I just wanted to highlight two particularly lovely community events that I attended since the last meeting. The first was on the 18th of May, where I represented yourself, Mr Mayor, and the councillors at the Lindenow Bowls Club for the second of 3 Volunteer Week events. So it was another really lovely event. I was proud to have my photo taken with Rhonda Wheeldon and John Whitburn, who are both community stalwarts. People would probably know them, and who are both on our 50+ years of volunteering honour roll. So that was great. Special acknowledgement I'd like to pass on to our officers for organising these 3 events. I think we've all enjoyed them all. It's been wonderful meeting the people in the community. And particularly at Lindenow, there was such a lot of chatter over a lovely afternoon tea as people who met old and new friends, I suppose, and really enjoyed the afternoon. So I think it was a fitting acknowledgement for many people who do this vital work in our community day in and day out. The second community event I attended was on which I'd like to speak about, is on the 26th of May. It was a Women in Agriculture workshop with Robin Moore. Held at the Nicholson Winery. This group of people have had a series of events to support women in agriculture. It's the second one that I'd been to where Robin Moore had been the guest speaker, but the last one she attended virtually. This time she was in the room herself, and it made such a lot of difference. She's an exceptionally talented communicator and storyteller, and she provided a powerful role model of what a fully engaged life can look like. So I think it was a real morale booster for a group of women in our community who are so often juggling more than 1, 2 or 3 different jobs, and who don't necessarily get acknowledgement or are not very often seen. So really lovely day. Good. And I'll submit my written report for the minutes, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Just turned it off rather than on. Very good. Thank you, Councillor Uri, and thank you all councillors for the work that you do and being advocates in the community. It's terribly important that you're out there and representing our constituents and being that voice and ears in particular to our community. I just wanted to outline a couple of things that I've been involved in. Some of you have mentioned events that have happened that I've been pleased to be part of, including up at Tambo Crossing with the opening of the community centre up there. And that was part of Volunteers Week as well. And I really enjoyed having lunch with the VIC volunteers and staff here in Bairnsdale during that week. So a big shout out to all volunteers across the Shire, and we acknowledge them for their amazing work that they contribute. Almost unquantifiable, the amount that they contribute. The Genoa Bridge was mentioned, and I think there were more like 150 people there. It was really an amazing event, and that Genoa Bridge was a great event, a great celebration, and a real story of resilience and reconnecting a community that was really fractured in that fire. So it was just really amazing to be there, and I congratulate the officers for the work that you've done in quickly building a bridge that joined a community, crossed a river, and we know that there are some other organisations that could take note on how to build bridges quickly, because we as a Shire have built 16 bridges since the fires, and that's one of them. So, and that was all funded by the Shire, $1.5 million. Minister Melissa Horne was down, and as has been mentioned, and she made some great announcements around boat ramps and boating facilities. Now, we maintain and operate 29 boat ramps, 29 I think, 24 Could be 29, you never know. There's probably a couple of private boat ramps that would add up. So when you put it in perspective that around Port Phillip Bay, I think there's something like 40 boat ramps, and they're all funded by the state government through Boating Victoria. And we provide 24 boat ramps across the Shire in itself. So to have Melissa Horn come down and announce funding for All Abilities Access at Apex Park boat ramp in Lakes Entrance was really fantastic. North Arm boat ramp, some upgrades there. Shaving Point, improving the boat ramp there at Meetung to give access to Mosquito Point and Bull Pool for in particular heavy vehicles and the barges is really amazing. And I think in particular, councillors, the announcement of the training vessel Barbaca at CMEC, which was just amazing. Now this will enable, and Councillor Allen, this will enable, I think, Masterclass 5 training for offshore. And when we think about the new industries that are just over the horizon, councillors, for the offshore wind industry, wind power industry, this training is really absolutely on point in terms of the future industries for our area. So well done to TAFE, Gippsland and CMEC. And the last one I want to mention is that I, among other things, I met with Olivia, who's a young person in Orbost, and she regularly attends the Marinda Centre. Now, Marinda's run by Now Young in Orbost, and I just want to congratulate Now Young and Marinda for a piece of work they're doing around All Abilities holiday access. So they have a great facility there in Orbost that has lifting facilities, accessible showers, toilets, with a view to being able to provide holiday accommodation for people with a disability and their carers. And I think that that's a really amazing piece of entrepreneurship and an untapped opportunity for the visitor economy that we haven't seen. So to hear of that piece of work and Minister Horn's announcements about All Ability accessible boat ramps and jetties, I think should gladden our hearts in terms of making our community a better place for everyone. Because when we make it accessible for the most challenged people, we make it accessible for everyone, and it's a better place as a result. Thank you, councillors, and again, thank you for all your work. It's really appreciated. We're moving now on to officers' reports, and item 5.1 is the discontinuance of an unused road reserve at 130 Day of Avenue, Omeo. And Mr Cannizzaro, I believe this is in your remit.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Councillors, before you is a report titled Discontinuance of Unused Road Reserve at 130 Day Avenue in Omeo. Councillors, there is an unused government road on Crown land that runs straight through private property at 130 Day Avenue. Council received an expression of interest from the property owner to purchase the land on which the unused government road runs through their property. Councillors, you'll see in attachment 1 an aerial image of the unused road and its surrounding properties. And the report seeks council approval to commence proceedings for a road closure and discontinuance to allow DELP, or Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, to complete a sale of the relevant portion of the unused road to the owners of 130 Day Avenue in Omeo. Councillors, the property in question, the unused government road, is approximately 2,783 square metres in area, and that's outlined in the aerial image in attachment 1. The part of the unused government road that runs through the property at 130 Day Avenue in Omeo and which is proposed to be closed and discontinued is approximately 1,741 square metres in area. Councillors, this is a very procedural matter. The governing pieces of legislation are the Local Government Act 1989 and also the Road Management Act of 2004. So also tonight, councillors, is with me tonight is Ree Kent, Manager Governance, and Lou Wigg, who is the coordinator of the property administration.
Mr Cannizzaro, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillors, are there any questions on this report? Councillor Crook.
Thanks for the report there. It's the blue section on the map labelled B that we're looking
Correct.
to approve the sale of? Yep.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Tom. Thank you. Councillor Stowe, do you have a question? Councillors, any further questions, clarifications, observations? In which case, councillors, there is a recommendation in front of us. Councillor Stowe, would you like to move that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buckley, thank you. Councillor Stowe, did you want to talk to the motion?
Not really, it's a procedural matter, happy to move it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Buckley?
Yes, look, it looks like it's the sensible thing to do, and I fully support it. And I think it's just an obvious thing to go forward with. So, fully support it.
Yep, good on you. Thank you. It's a steep bit of land. Would have been a challenging bit of road, I imagine. Is the motion opposed, councillors? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Carried unanimously, CEO. Item 5.2 is Place and Community, and 5.2.1 is South Bairnsdale Industrial Estate Notice to Vary a Special Charge Scheme. Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report recommending the special charge scheme for the South Bairnsdale Industrial Estate be varied. The special charge scheme is already in place, it's already been declared, but as a result of some changes to the within the estate, as well as some oversights in the original declaration, there is a need to vary that special charge scheme. It relates to works to upgrade the water supply, as we've previously outlined, that will reduce the cost of development of land within the industrial estate. So it's an important activity for council in terms of facilitating economic development. The overall project cost is $2.4 million. There's contributions there from East Gippsland Water, from the Regional Development Victoria. The scheme is intended to raise $400,000, and council, through its Economic Development Discretionary Fund, is also contributing $400,000. The notice to the notice proposing the variation to the scheme was approved by council on the 5th of April. Formal notice has occurred through the Bairnsdale Advertiser and through direct notification to affected landholders, and there were no public submissions. So on that basis, you have before you, councillors, a recommendation to proceed with the variation of that special charge scheme. Great. Thank you.
Mr McConnell, thank you. Councillors, any questions? Councillor Van Diggle.
Can we expect to see more variations come through, or do you reckon this is it now?
I hope
it's
not.
come up a lot in our councillor terms. That's it, you think? Okay.
Is this the first and one and only variation? Or is
Yeah, through you, Mayor. This is the only variation that's occurred. We have the process to declare a special charge scheme is a multi-step process, so it's been before this group of councillors a number of times, but this is the only variation to the scheme.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. Councillor Buckley.
Has there been any objections from any of the properties in regards to this special charge?
So, through you, thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Stuart.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. There have been no objections to the proposed variation. We've received no submissions. There were some submissions in relation to the original declaration of the scheme, as you've been previously briefed. A number of those were taken on board, and some changes were made to the scheme in its previous declaration, and a number were assessed as being still appropriate to apply the scheme to those properties.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Crook, did you have a question? Councillor Stowe, did you have a question? Any further questions, councillors? Councillors, there is a recommendation there. Councillor Stowe, would you like to move it?
Yes, I'd like to move it, thank you.
Councillor White, sorry, would you like to second it? Great. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, just very briefly. This has been an ongoing matter for years and years. I think everyone, that includes council staff, councillors and the property owners, will be very glad to see it put to bed, and I think this puts it to bed in a very good way, so I'd be happy to move the motion.
Councillor White.
Yes, for several times now I've either seconded or moved the motion. I would just like to see, as a result of tonight's meeting, that we get some pipe in the ground.
Some action.
Yes.
Great.
Please.
Let's do it. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? In which case, councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. It's carried unanimously. Councillors, item 5.2.2 is one of our favourites. It's a Section 173 agreement. Let me just navigate my way to that. And this is a request to end an agreement at 31 May Park Drive, Paynesville. Mr McConnell, take us through this one, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking the ending of a Section 173 agreement for 31 May Park Drive in Paynesville. This was advertised and no objections were received. Key points are the agreement needs to be ended in order to allow for a two-lot subdivision of the land. The agreement provided that land would be fully serviced in the then growth area of Paynesville. Development has since been fully completed and so further subdivision has occurred all around the subject site. Both the application for the two-lot subdivision and the request to end the agreement have been subject to public notice and neither has received objections. And Council considers the proposal as suitable and therefore recommends determination to end the agreement. And also present this evening we have Robert Pringle and Martin Richardson who can assist with any questions.
Great, thanks Mr McConnell. Terrific. Councillors, are there any questions on this matter? Section 173 agreement at May Park Drive.
Seen it before.
None seen. I'll ensure my peripheral vision is much better this time, councillors. There is a recommendation, councillors. You have a motion. Thank you, Councillor Uri. You happy to move it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Van Diegel. Councillor Uri, would you like to speak?
No, I don't. I think that this is fairly straightforward, really.
Yep.
I can't see any reason why it's not a good thing to do, so I'm very happy to move the motion. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Councillor Van Diegel.
I have no further comments. These things come before us quite often.
They do.
Happy to support it.
Councillors, the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Thanks, councillors. In which case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, CEO. That's carried unanimously. That was item 5.2.2. 5.2.3, councillors, is the request to end Section 173 agreement at 8B Kingscote Drive, Meetung. Good evening. There's our gallery. Bye-bye. 8B Kingscote Drive, Meetung. And again, it's a Section 173 agreement. And Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report, as the Mayor has outlined, in relation to the ending the Section 173 agreement in Kingscote Drive, Meetung. The key points for Council to consider are the agreement needs to be ended to allow for the development of a dwelling on the land outside of the nominated building envelope, which was in the 173 agreement. The building envelope was a requirement of the original three-lot subdivision. The current building envelope location, though, is less than preferred due to the introduction of the bushfire attack level, the bushfire protection requirements in this area. So a permit was required also for earthworks associated with the proposed dwelling, and this was approved on the basis or with a condition that the agreement was ended. Council officers consider it's appropriate in this case that the proposal is suitable and therefore recommends the determination to end the agreement. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mr McConnell. Councillors, again, are there any questions of clarification on this matter? And I see we've got Mr Pringle and Mr Richardson there again in case. Thanks, councillors. In which case there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion? Councillor Van Diegel, do I have a seconder? Councillor Allen, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Buckley, missed by the blink of an eye. Councillor Van Diegel, Councillor Allen, did you want to speak to the motion?
Again, it's procedural,
Yep.
so no.
Thank you. Is the motion opposed, councillors? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? I see no one, in which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thanks, councillors. Councillor Buckley, I couldn't quite see your hand if you had it up. It was just off screen. Great, thank you. I think that's carried unanimously, Mr CEO. There we are, moving backwards and forwards. It's the new decor that's taking you. We're watching the big screen behind you. Thanks, councillors. That was carried unanimously. We're on to item 5.2.4. No? Yes, we are. 5.2.4, and this is a planning permit application, and this is one familiar to us, building and works for a jetty extension at Barrier Landing. Nairimalang, councillors.
Thank you.
Mr McConnell, it's your night tonight.
It is. Councillors, before you is a report seeking to issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for buildings and works for a jetty extension at Barrier Landing. This has been subject to notice and a planning consultation meeting. The application was made subject to public notice and a number of objections have been raised. The concerns included issues such as the coastal erosion and impacts on private land and their associated jetties, visual impacts both in terms of general amenity and an impact on the local environment, visitor impacts and the impact on general amenity and the impact on the local environment, impact on the navigation of the Hopetoun Channel and emergency response issues and risks. So the application is made by the Gippsland Ports, who manage the facility and associated waterway. Marine and Coastal Act consent has been sought by the applicant and provided by the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and officers consider this consent is important in terms of addressing the concerns related to coastal erosion. Input was also sought from Parks Victoria in relation to the Crown Land Management, has confirmed that the project does not require additional on-land facilities. Overall, this extension to the existing facility meets the state and local policy planning objectives regarding coastal development. It's recommended that a notice of decision to grant a permit is approved, subject to the conditions presented. And again, Robert Pringle and Martin Richardson are here to assist with any questions.
Terrific, thank you, Mr McConnell, and councillors will be familiar with the public consultation meeting that was held on this matter. Are there any questions of our officers, councillors? Clearly a very good report that they've read well, officers, so councillors appear fully informed, in which case, councillors, there is a recommendation. Do I have a motion? Councillor Allen? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stowe. Sorry, Sonia, missed again. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. I have absolutely no hesitation in moving this motion. There was 18 objections that we heard at the public consultation meeting, and no one objected to the jetty as such. A lot of people objected to the neighbours that they had, as we discussed today, in relation to parks. And I think that there's a follow-up for us to do to ensure that in future they become better neighbours to the property owners over on that section of the, well, basically what is the Bilpool Peninsula, basically. And it is a major destination most of the year for vessels that are on the lake, and the additional moorings there are going to be very much appreciated by people who wish to be able to go over there and tie up and enjoy the amenity over there. So,
thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Stowe.
Yes, well summarised, Deputy. It's a very minor addition to the infrastructure that's already there. It'll be most welcomed by the 7 people who are able to tie up there. So I have no hesitation in seconding the motion.
Good points, thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to speak, and I will support this motion, but it wasn't a straightforward consideration for me, and I really appreciated the opportunity to ask questions and to hear the concerns of the community about this. Even though it was presented as a minor increase in the jetty space, in my mind there was still a question that we were encouraging increased activity on the Gippsland lakes, and were we happy about that? Now, mostly we promote the Gippsland Lakes. They're wonderful. We all love going out on them, but I do feel that we have a lack of data about the health of the Gippsland Lakes, and that's been a subject of conversation too, largely as a result for me of this conversation around the increased jetty size. So I've just appreciated that. I also, it's been mentioned about the associated infrastructure on land. That's something that we will keep an eye on, I think, from now on. And I did have, it was raised by you, I think, Councillor Allen, but I did follow up on the question about the effect on seagrass at the jetty, and was assured that that's been assessed by through the process, and that's determined not to be at risk. So I am happy to support, after all that, there was a long explanation, but I am happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Your considerations are always valued. Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion, councillors? In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? CEO, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The last item on our agenda tonight is item 5.2.5, which is a planning permit application 392/2016 PA, use and development of a residential village. It's an amended permit at 75 Paynesville Road, Paynesville, and again this has been subject to a PCM. And Mr McConnell, again,
thank you, Mayor.
Your item.
Councillors, before you is a report recommending determination to issue a notice of decision to amend an existing planning permit for the use and development of a residential village at 75 Paynesville Road, Paynesville. The key points for consideration include that permission was granted in February 2017 for a residential village, including 247 units plus a community centre on this site. This is shown in the plan on page 205 of the meeting agenda, and that permit remains in place. This application now seeks permission for an amended scheme which introduces two-storey accommodation, reduces the number of units by 52 down to 195, provides a more centralised clubhouse, and provides green links to facilitate pedestrian permeability, and the proposal includes now 7 different dwelling types, 5 of which are single storey. A total of 10 objections were received from the community. A PCM took place, as was mentioned, on the 28th of March. And in summary, the objections broadly or predominantly raised concerns regarding the bulk and scale of the two-storey built form that backs onto the existing residential properties and the resultant overlooking. Following that meeting, amended plans were submitted, which sought to address the concerns expressed by the neighbours regarding the two-storey development located adjacent. The amended plans show the proposed two-storey development relocated further towards the centre of the development and not directly facing the boundaries of the site. The amendments overall are considered to soften the overall impact of the development and satisfactorily address the relationship between existing and the proposed development. Following the receipt of those amended plans, further consultation was undertaken with the objectors, and one objector withdrew their objection. The applicant has also provided additional information regarding the green space in the development and the proposed bowls facility. Now, councillors, I need to draw to your attention an amendment to the officer's recommendation, and that appears in the conditions that are attached in the report. This has been circulated to you by email, and I'll ask Vanessa to be able to show that on the screen in a moment. But essentially those amendments do 3 things. The first is one of the plans did still show some two-storey buildings located near the eastern boundary, and so there's a requirement for an amended plan that just clarifies what is the intent, which is that that there is not the two-storey buildings along that eastern boundary. Mm-hmm. There is the inclusion of reference to the building and development overlay in the preamble to the conditions, which just avoids the possibility of there being a need for a subsequent permit after this permit for some dwellings, because that's certainly not the intent. The intention is to provide this permission, and that enables the development. So that's more of a technical planning matter. And then also amendments that allow the roads to be constructed with a centre swale type drain rather than a curb and channel. So those three matters. In the material that was emailed to you, there is a version which has revision marks if that's easier for you to follow. So with those amendments to the officer's recommendation, our view is that overall this infill development meets state and local policy objectives regarding diversity in housing and infill development, and it's recommended the permit is approved, subject to the conditions as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions? Clarification? Councillor Crook and then Councillor Buckley.
Thanks. I just, it's probably a question for the planning staff. I'm still a little bit unclear on the two-storey dwellings. Am I right in thinking that all those two-storey dwellings are now occurring on the interior of the development and none will in fact occur on the development's perimeter?
I might ask Martin Richardson to respond.
Good evening, Martin.
Thanks, Councillor Crook, and through you, Mayor. There are still two-storey developments proposed on the eastern boundary of the development. They were included in the original plans, and so when the first notification was given, all of the neighbours on the eastern side of the development, who fortunately do have quite larger allotments, were notified of that. So there are still two times two-storey developments proposed as per the original plans. The issue with the amended recommendation that we have given you is that proposals in the amended plans added another 4, and we have insisted, or recommended, sorry, that those 4 additional two-storey developments, which the neighbours on the east were not aware of, will be relocated to the centre of the site, and thus the proposal as advertised to all neighbours will include no additional two-storey developments on their property boundaries.
So we'll still have...
Happy to clarify if you like.
So we'll still have an original 2 on the eastern side, but the others on the southern side that were proposed have now been removed.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
All of the two-storey developments, quite a number of them on the southern side, have now been replaced with single-storey developments, which we expect will alleviate the concerns of all of the people along Ashley Street.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Buckley. Same question.
I was pipped at the post again. So, yeah, it was the same question.
Great, thank you. That's good. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Uri.
Sorry, just continuing on the same theme, please, Martin. And I can't quite get my map up there of the whole block, but here we are. From memory, the eastern side of this development backs onto developed land where there are quite large allotments. Is that right? The buildings that are already there. With the people in that area, I know we heard mostly from the people on the southern boundary who felt they would be overlooked. Did we also hear from the people on that eastern boundary? Would they still be concerned about these two-storey developments, in your opinion?
Thanks, Councillor Uri. Through you, Mayor. All of the neighbouring property owners were notified.
Yes.
Most of the objections came from people on smaller lots to the south and west who have smaller backyards, and the properties in Riviera Close are quite large. We did receive a couple of objections from those people in Riviera Close, but they were more generally about the density and suggestions of overdevelopment, which we believe have been addressed. So we're reasonably confident that given that the original plan for two-storey development on those adjacent boundaries has not changed, other than those adjacent to the rear yards of Ashley Street and Coast Avenue, we're reasonably confident that the people in Riviera Close should be pretty happy with the outcome.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Richardson.
Thanks, Mandy. Councillors, any further questions? If there are no more questions, councillors, there is a recommendation there. Do I have a motion? Councillor Buckley, do I have a seconder? Councillor Greason. Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, I think that this looks like a fabulous development. It'll offer so many people, you know, so much happiness in a wonderful area, and we are always looking as councillors at the Shire to provide housing when we have and good accommodation. So I fully support this. It sounds like there has been enough change to deal with any objections that the community had, and I think once it goes ahead and they see how wonderful it is, that it'll provide a lot of happiness and a good living space. So I thoroughly commend that this planning application be accepted.
Very good, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Greason, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh no, I really can't add to Councillor Buckley's words. Thank you.
Councillors, is the motion opposed? Would anybody else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Crook. And then Councillor Uri.
I'm not going to speak against it because I appreciate that it's been through the relevant processes, and I do believe that the objectors' issues have been largely addressed. However, looking at the plan, I really do feel that obviously this is quite a high density development, and I don't have a problem with that either. I do feel like there has been some effort to address the previous lack of green space, and I acknowledge that there is more than there was. I do feel, however, that there could be significantly more, and that would improve the amenity of the development, and I think that we can do, councillors, better than this in the future. But I accept that it will meet the needs, some of the needs of the existing market, and so I'm happy to see it proceed.
Thanks, Councillor Crook. Councillor Uri.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I will also support the motion, but not without some reservation. And firstly, just to say once again that I've appreciated the process that this application has been through and the willingness of the proponents to engage with the community and make some changes along the way to make the proposal quite a bit more attractive. The reservations I have, and we've heard already this evening about this, is there is not a great deal of diversity in terms of the sizes of these houses, being all 3-bedroom houses, I believe. I think that's a shame. I think it would have been better if there'd been 1 or 2-bedroom houses on offer as well. But as councillors, we have to assess what's before us, so we can't sort of get to pick and choose. The other thing I have concern about is 195 lots is a lot, and a climate change effect of not having a building regulation which requires light-coloured roofs, I think could lead to increased heat in some of these houses. So again, there's another avenue to pursue for this council if it has the desire to try and get some changes to the building regulations. But again, that's not a reason to vote against this application. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Uri. Well, councillors, I'd just like to echo some of the points that you've made in terms of supporting this development. It certainly is a formulaic response, I think. Clearly the developer has a model that they've rolled out across Australia, and it clearly works to a particular market, and clearly the people who would like to live in these places really love them. It does seem a bit of an anomaly, sort of a little community within the community of Paynesville, but I'm sure it'll be successful nevertheless. And I do hope that the new residents who come and enjoy what will be a beautiful development, there's no doubt about it, it'll be really amazing. I do hope they have the opportunity and will interact with our community, because the risk is that they're a little bit inward facing in terms of all the services are there and the clubs and facilities, and I hope that they add to the vibrancy of our local community around Paynesville and Eagle Point. But having said that, councillors, I'm happy to support it, and I'll put the motion to the vote now. All those in favour? Carried unanimously, CEO. Councillors, there isn't any other urgent or other business, and there's no confidential business. in which case I'm happy to declare the meeting closed at 7:24 p.m. Thank you all for attending. Thank you, officers, again for your excellent reports, which makes our work easier, because with good reports we can make good decisions.